we forgot to record your story, but Butch is going to be interested in the coaching. Would you all like to stay for the coaching? Okay, you have to stay quiet. We don't allow multiple coaches, okay? Just one person, you can watch what we do. That was a really good story. What did you think about it?
Well, I think I really enjoyed the preparation process.
Okay.
And earlier I had been more distracted when I prepped other stories, more distracted by the process. And so it was starting to feel a bit more natural, and seeing sort of what was and wasn't at work in this story. And so I felt like I had a plan going in. I told the story okay. The fire part is tricky.
It was, and I think you did it real well. I really liked this. I thought that was really cool. What made you think of that?
I was thinking about how good it would be, like this happens and you're like, hey, Andrew, is there something over my head? Because there's something over yours and over Tom.
Okay.
And, just at that witness of it, like, oh, good to know, as you're wondering what's going on. And I also thought about, the question of what could God have done? Like, well, if there hadn't been flames, what about loaves of bread, giant drops of water? What were some things that God could have chosen?
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, fire. We can go with fire.
Well, you are a very good listener, very patient listener. How many stories have you done? A lot. To adults. To adults.
I don't know. It's hard to say because I haven't done that many. This is probably only the second time I've done it with a group, because I have some friends who are patient, but it's hard to do it with one individual because it's so much.
Okay, so this is kind of like a live fire exercise in the sense that my sister Naomi doesn't normally come to this, and she's not trained in stories. She's going to give straight, honest responses, whereas the rest of us might not. We might, give a less honest response, a more wise counsel response. So that's really cool. I mean, for someone who has not done a lot of live fire stories, this was really, really good. And I want to tell you some things I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed this. We're going through Elisha right now, and he seems to do all of his miracles with something, with a stick or with salt or with jars of oil or whatever. I mean, he's real physical with it. So I like that. I thought that was really cool. And you did that with rocks one time, which I really, really enjoyed. I thought your storytelling was really good. Together, the disciples were together. Filled, I think you went like that for filled. Then you stepped back and did devout men. It's kind of like a change of scene. So do you have acting skills that you practiced or that you were trained in?
I have years of waving my hands at international students.
Okay, well, those are some really good the bewildered or amazed. I think those were really good things that you did. I really enjoyed that. I thought your lead through was very interesting. I noticed, I'm just going to tell you this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 questions to 2 spaces. And normally it's the other way. Normally people try to fill in the blank instead of asking a question. So you went completely opposite and you asked questions instead of fill in the blank. And your opposite was like, wow, that was like. So could you tell me why you chose the questions over the fill in the blank?
Because I'm kind of still not sure where to put fill in the blank. I find it true to be tough. And so I figure with the question, people know what I want.
Okay, well, let's practice fill in the blank, okay? I'll just do a couple and you do a couple, okay? When the day of Pentecost had finally, you guys answer. Come, okay. Open your mics just for this part. The day of Pentecost fully come, all the disciples were gathered together in
One place.
one place in
One accord.
one accord or unity. Okay. And suddenly there came a sound from
Heaven.
heaven. Okay, go ahead and try a couple, Diane.
It was a
Loud rushing. Wind.
Loud noise. Okay, loud noise.
yeah, violent rushing wind.
Uh-huh.
And it
Filled.
Filled.
yeah, the whole
The whole room, the whole house, the whole house.
yeah, where they were
They were
Staying.
staying. Okay, very good. That was really good. Okay, you guys can close your mics again. That was really good, Diane. And so, it's okay to do all of one or all of the other. I just tend to like myself to try to divide them just so that I'm purposefully being more personal in the story. So practice that in front of a mirror a couple times. And just because the fill in the blanks are a lot easier to say.
Mhm.
And so people are going to practice more on the fill in the blanks. They're going to participate with the fill in the blanks instead of the questions. And that's just my particular bent on that. Good catch on that you were missing your situation question, but you put it in there. That background, what help me with it. What would you have done with this loud noise?
yeah. And I thought, well, do I do a question for the first part? But the second part does have all the feeling, and it does feel like there's a lot of focus in the narrative on that, as opposed to, I hadn't realized, like, wow, this amazing thing happens to the disciples, but we don't know anything about their reaction. We know that God sees them as suitable and they respond.
Yeah. Well, that might have been a good situation question. What might the disciples have felt, when this happened?
Yeah, I thought about that, and then I said, well, the writer wasn't very interested in that. So I'm going to go with what he was.
Yeah, it does. You're right. The writer doesn't seem interested in that. So that is interesting. What you might want to consider is not saying you. What might you have felt like? Instead, you want to kind of focus back on the.
Yeah, I didn't realize I did that.
Okay.
I have a real preference for you as a pronoun, and it's gotten me in trouble through the years as I've.
Well, as an ESL teacher. Yeah. Well, that was not a major problem. I think we all knew what you wanted. Okay. Liked your first question. What can we learn about God? I thought that was really good. Some of your other questions that you asked some yes or no questions. And then you jumped right into a wise counsel question. And so I have my notes here. Tell her to jump into a wise counsel question. But you did that. So that was really good. Whenever you ask a yes or no question, and they're good to ask because you're basically asking what happened. Did this happen, or what was your question? Does it tell us anything about the reactions of the people, of the disciples? I think that was your yes or no question. No, it doesn't. What might we learn about God? Okay, and so that's a good way to do that. And so sometimes those yes or no questions are like breadcrumbs that kind of lead you to where you want to go. So I thought that was really good too. One thing I want to suggest this to you. In your introduction, you mentioned John the Baptist, but you didn't use him in the story. And you might have considered mentioning Moses and the fiery mountain where he received the covenant, because you introduced a couple things that we didn't know about, okay? And so just that part of the introduction, just take John out, and instead of talking about John, just talk about Moses receiving the first covenant in stone with fire. Just go ahead and talk about that for a minute or so.
Yeah, that was something that I wanted to ask you all what you all would put in it, because it was, to me, it feels like these are two big symbols with the fire and the wind, and I wasn't sure how to put, whether or not I should put those in at all. If so, how?
Okay. Well, why don't you try, and then we can talk about it.
No, I mean, you're yeah, in the past, the other stories that I've seen have mostly just used the immediate context.
Okay. Well,
and yet we've got fire and wind, and it's like you kind of want to educate you guys know the Bible, so you're fine to pull in any number of images, I mean, from the Bible, but how would I do that for a group that wouldn't be acquainted maybe with those things?
okay,
And
well, kind of like a
I'm
nominal
becoming
Christian
the
group.
authority when I do that.
They probably know who Moses is.
Yeah.
And so you could say, in this story, we're going to see some symbols of fire and wind. And this happened with Moses when he was on the mountain with God and received from God the first covenant of God, the 10 Commandments, the law of God. And the mountain was on fire, and there were loud noises and flashes of lightning. And there you go.
Mm-hmm.
You've introduced it. And now when you talk about it, it's not foreign to us. Another way to do it is to say, an additional point I'd like to bring out to you when you're in the middle of the story is about Moses. And just take a minute to tell us Moses was on the mountain where he received from God tablets written with God's finger, defining the laws of God. And there was a loud noises and flashes of lightning and fire on the mountain, and boom, you've introduced it in a good way. If you didn't put it in the introduction, then you just add it as an additional point of information. Okay, you want to try one of those?
Now, let me ask, if I go back and do it in the introduction, would you just start with the immediate context, and then go, oh, and one more thing? And
right, yeah, there you go. You did the immediate context, and now just add about Moses, not about John.
So I'd like to, we've been studying the book of Acts, and I just want to remind you that Jesus, after his resurrection, had appeared to the disciples on a number of occasions and made it clear that they were to make disciples of the nations. Just before this story, God, in the days leading up to this story, Jesus had ascended and had reminded them one more time that they're to wait and they will receive power and the Holy Spirit. And so that's kind of where our story is going to start. But there's going to be some symbols that you want to recognize in the story of fire and of wind. And if we go all the way back to Moses, and when he receives the 10 Commandments, he receives them on a mountaintop, and there is fire on the mountain, and only Moses is going up. There's lightning and wind, and Moses is up there in all of that, coming safely back down.
There you go. I thought that was really good. You know, we don't have to take 1 minute for the introduction. You can take 2. You take what's necessary for the story, and it'll help you in the long run. So that was really, really good. Can I add one more thing?
Sure.
That I thought you might be able to improve on. Okay, help you be a better storyteller. Is one time I was telling a story, and I asked for a volunteer, and the volunteer raised their hand and said, "Oh, I don't remember anything." And I said, well, thank you. That was really brave of you to try to tell the story. Nobody else tried, and you're a brave person. Thank you so much for doing that. And that person participated actively in the story. And so no matter what they say, try to be specific about something that they say. Like Naomi got the tongues of fire because you said livers of fire, so tongues of fire is going to stick in our minds, right? And the day of Pentecost. So just mention to the persons 1 or 2 specific things that they did right. I thought it was a really good story. I thought the application was really, really good. You really prepared for the story. And a lot of times when you prepare, you stay in that first section and go really deep like we did. And so that's nothing to be sad about. You did really, really well. That was a really good story. You did so many things good. And I think you held all of us very, very interested. And just these one or two things, I hope you don't take them as correction, but as some polishing. There's some polishing to help you as a better storyteller. So I would, that's a great story. And I would be really happy to hear that story or have you share it sometime. You're a good storyteller. I really admire your patience, not afraid of silence, listening skills. So that's really, really good stuff. So thank you. Thank you for sharing.
You.
Do you have anything else you want to add or say?
Nope.
Okay, super duper. I'm going to turn the recording off.